Well, hello there Tenno, and welcome to another Warframe video. Today's episode is the beginning of a modding series thing type, maybe possibly, brought on by none other than a little recent quest some of you may have done. More on that in a moment. First though, be a love, won't you, and drop me a like, comment and or sub, because your favourite little barbarian requires your help. And many thanks. Spiffing and whatnot. Okay, onto the video. In the recent Valis Undermined update, DE released a long asked for modding quest, the Teacher quest no less. It features a tutorial of sorts on modding, introduction to Teshin, and can be accessed after you've completed the Vor's prize quest. This is early content. So, what did we all think of this quest? Well, as an experienced player myself in Warframe, I very much felt like, okay, why am I here? This meeting definitely could have been an email, do you know what I'm saying? I mean, I was grateful it was brief, but at the same time, from a new player's perspective, I am actually surprised at how brief it was. However, knowing what I know about Warframe and DE, it truly does still fit into the style of them absolutely not really wanting to hold our hands throughout this game. And it is really why the Warframe community is generally so damn helpful after all. Now, let us know your thoughts on the quest down below, including whether you are a newish or more experienced player, and what it felt like from your perspective. So I thought I would do a slightly deeper dive mod series on the back of this quest. I guess there is a ton of info to gather over time about modding, so we shall attack it a video at a time. If you want them, that is. This episode, we're going to look at status, damage types, be it physical or primary, secondary elementals, what use those damage types are against certain enemies, and how to place mods to ensure you get those damage types, and how to maybe make them stronger. The quest gives gamers the following information: that certain damage types can do more damage to certain enemies, that some elements can be used together to make new ones, that you need to increase the stats on your mods using endo where you can, that you can sell your replicated mods for said endo, and that mod polarities can be formed to get more mods in, i.e. you have a mod capacity to consider. It also kind of gave the vibe that the Lotus detested, or at least didn't trust Teshin way before the Tenno even knew who he was. More on that lore in a separate video. And there's plenty that quest didn't tell us, and that is that endo can be found elsewhere in the game, not just by selling replicated mods. Iron sculptures, you'll find iron stars as you go through the game. You can socket the treasures that you get, and then you can sell them to Maru at Maru's Bazaar on Mars for more endo. There are plenty of little missions as you go through the game, little nodes that will deliver you endo at the end of each round. Tikal on Earth as a starter mission, the excavation very often delivers like 100 endo per round, and then when you reach the Zaraban missions, you'll get tons of endo from those. You'll reach arbitrations, and they give item sculptures often and endo, so there's loads of other ways to get endo in the game as you progress. And that your base mod capacity now starts at 15, and it increases by 1 for every 2 mastery ranks you increase by, all the way up to 30. And that if you add an Orokin catalyst or reactor, it will double whatever overall capacity you have there. If you add Former or Omniformer or Umbral Former, it will have the capacity cost of whichever mod you add with that polarity to its slot. And that don't worry, Tenno, you will collect better mods and stuff and things as you go and progress through the game and have fun. They also didn't tell us all the status effects, who is weak to what, and how to decide which mods to use on our weapons. And first up, I suppose, is a simple step, but good to know, and that is that the order of mods matter, specifically in weapons and companions. For example, precept mod order for Warframe companions, specifically Sentinels and Beasts. We're looking at Shade Prime here. It's prioritised from top left all the way down to bottom right, with the top left slot having the highest priority. For example, if you want your Shade to cloak you as its first priority as it reads through its mods, you place the Ghost precept in the top left slot. If the Ghost precept is placed after an attack precept, for example, the Sentinel may attack enemies before cloaking you. So it's really up to you what your priority is for Shade to do for you in the mission. Now, this order thing for the mods is going to also come into effect when we look at status effects on our weapons, which is a nice little segue into this bit. Status effects are also known as procs. It's an additional effect that may be triggered by a hit, aka damage from a weapon or Warframe ability. Status chance is the probability that the hit will in fact even inflict a status effect to then go to work on thy enemy. Now, why do I say additional effect? Well, because all weapons, when built and containing no mods, have their own base stats and typically include impact, puncture, and slash damage. This is known as IPS. These are physical damage types, and if a weapon doesn't have them in its base build, then you can add mods in for them after. So, for example, if you have a weapon like the Torrid, it doesn't have any slash damage as its base damage. It only has Toxin, which is an elemental damage type. So we can't add direct slash damage mods and it do anything because there is no slash damage. However, we can apply mods that may proc slash damage when you hit a critical hit. So Hunter Munitions may do that for you. And seeing as we're looking at the Torrid and looking at its base element being Toxin and not IP or S, what are elemental damages? Well, we have primary elemental damage being heat, cold, electric, and toxin, also known as HCET. HCET in that order specifically, more on that in a moment. And these four elements can also be mixed together to create combos, i.e. secondary elemental damage types being blast, corrosive, gas, magnetic, radiation, and viral. Some status effects can cause damage over time known as DOT, and they really also ruin your enemy's day, and those happen to be slash, heat, toxin, electricity, and gas. So when we want to add elemental damage combinations, they're made by following a mod placement hierarchy. And this reads from top left all the way to bottom right. Now, you don't have to have elements in the top left for the game to realize you have an element in there. You could have a primed damage mod in the top left. But whatever comes first in your mod configuration from the top left all the way down to the bottom right will be read first by the game and mixed with the thing next to it after it. So for example here, I've put an electric mod in first, then I've put two toxin mods, one happens to have some status on it. And the game knows, regardless of where they are, because there are no other elements before them from top left all the way to bottom right, regardless of where you've got them, we were mixing electric with toxin, and that made us some corrosive. And weapons that have innate elemental damage, and we'll go back to the Torrid as an example, it has a primary element of toxin as its innate elemental damage. These damages are considered the very last. So they're added in. As you can see, we put an electric mod in and it mixed electric first and then toxin last. So that little electric sign plus toxin matters. That's showing you the order that the game is mixing these elements together in, i.e. how it's prioritizing your mixing, you know? And there are some exceptions to this rule. Tenet encoder weapons, like the Tenet Glaxion here, for example, some, not all, of these weapons actually have two base primary elemental damages, one from the weapon itself and one from the valence damage. In these cases, whichever of the two primary elements comes first out of the specific element order of HCET, remember, heat, cold, electricity, toxin, that one will be placed second to last in the element combination order. Ooh, while the other primary element still comes last in the combination order. And remember, we can alter our valence damage now with elemental vices if you prefer your valence damage percentage bonus over the mods you can get in for the weapon's base damage, for example. And if the weapon's base damage is IPS or a secondary element, we can't mix it any further. We can only add mods to increase the percentage or the chance of that damage. Now, I should add here that physical damage procs actually have a higher chance. So keep that in mind when you're modding. So if you have any of the IPS, impact, puncture, or slash, try to multiply their damage percentage wise, because the higher that is, the more damage you're going to do. And if it's slash, it does damage over time, so that is a bonus. So I don't know if you were paying attention to what was happening on the screen. I was just trying to show you, if I change the valence damage, how it interacts with the cold damage, the base damage on the weapon. So if there's no mods in, it's going to mix a primary valence damage with the cold. So if I put heat or toxin in, it wants to mix them together. Heat and cold make blast, toxin and cold make viral. But then if I put another primary element, and I mean either heat, cold, electric, or toxin mod, in to the actual mods, then the game starts to employ that HCET order. So toxin is always going to get mixed last and the cold will get mixed before it. But if I put a heat mod in, the heat mod gets mixed first. So will end up having heat mixed with cold, then mixed with electric, then mixed with toxin last, because toxin happens to be the last in that order, and it also happens to be our valence damage. If I put heat in the valence damage, it will mix that before the cold, if you get what I mean. The heat will always come first. The heat here that you see is actually coming from a mod, so it's good to play around with it and try to get it in your head how it's mixing it. Now, it's not really vital that you put your elements in some kind of order, but it's vital if you want to get a specific element and you're not getting it, or you don't understand why you're not getting it, and it's because you have some base elemental damage going on in your weapon, and you just need to know the alchemy, that's all, and how to make sure that when you put another element in, you actually get the resulting element that you want. And then you can start adding percentages to it. So we can start adding other mods like the increased status damage or status chance, etc. But we're going to look more into those in other videos when we look at these sort of completed builds, because it's a lot of information to take in. Just remember, Heket, the order of how they mix the primary elements together. Okay. And just before we start looking at how to make secondary elements and who's weak to what and resistant to what, we're just going to bounce back to the torrid a moment, because like many other weapons in the game, it has an elemental base damage, which means it's always going to get mixed last. So as you can see, it's mixing heat with toxin. But if we put two other elements in, it's going to mix those two first and leave the toxin out of it. As you can see, the heat is mixed with the electric now, and the toxin is its own entity. If we put a fourth element in, then the toxin will still get mixed last. And sometimes that just doesn't suit your build or your mod configuration. So if you want the toxin to be mixed first, for instance, with the electric to make corrosive, which is very useful, we'll talk about that in a moment, all you have to do is put a toxin mod first. Now, it doesn't have to be in the very first slot. It just has to be the first slot that's red with an element in it. So you could put a damage mod in that top left. That's fine. As long as the toxin is the first element to be red, that mod has to be in there first. Okay, from the top left all the way down to the bottom right. And then it will take it into consideration first and start mixing it first with your other elements. And then hopefully make yourself some corrosive. So to wrap up, let's go through these secondary elements, how to make them and who might be weak to them or resistant to them. First up is Blast. We make this by mixing heat and cold elements together. And Blast is effective against the infested, but it's not very good against the Corpus Amalgam units. And next up is our beloved Corrosive, made by mixing together electric and toxin elements. And Corrosive is highly effective against Grineer, Kuva Grineer and Tekrot due to their ferrite armor. It is also useful against certain infested units, particularly those with high armor, like Ancients. And it can also be effective against Sentients, especially when used with Archon Shards. And when we say Archon Shards, we're talking about the emerald ones, the green ones, where you can stack Corrosive stacks above and beyond, and it really does ruin their day. But unfortunately, the 1999 enemies, Skuldra, they're not so much bothered by the Corrosive. And next up is Gas, made by mixing together heat and toxin, and the Deimos infested are pretty much weak to it, whereas as you can see, Skuldra are not. Next up, it's Magnetic, and that is made by mixing cold and electric together, and Corpus units are weak to it, and Nama units are resistant to it. It's also good against Tekrot. And Magnetic basically bypasses shields, and I think it bypasses Overguard as well. So it's really good to have in your arsenal, like really good. Next up we have Radiation, made by mixing heat and electric together. And the internet told me that Sentients are resistant to radiation damage, whereas if we hover over here, it says they have increased damage to it and also to the Murmur, but less damage to the Orokin. But I know that Sentients adapt their defenses, so Radiation actually just confuses the enemies and makes them attack each other for a while, and it's really good apparently against Grineer with their alloy armor, but especially the Murmur. And last but not least, we have Viral, which is made by mixing cold and toxin together, and it's really effective against the Orokin enemies, but not so much against the Deimos infested and the Murmur. So there we go, there are some basics about status effects. Now, whatever your base weapon damage be it physical, IPS variations, or mixed with an element or combo elements, those original OG damage types are your base damage types that all other add-ons will be calculated from. And this isn't massively important to know and obsess over, but it can be useful to help you focus in on which weapons you might really want to prefer to use in certain areas of the game for certain enemies. And of course, we don't want to just add status to our weapons. Of course we don't. We're not going to talk about them all here, although we've learned some more about status, I hope, in this video. You may want to add, I don't know, some multi-shot, or increase critical chance or damage, or bump up our range or reload speed, or overall damage using, I don't know, a general damage mod like Pressure Point or primed version of it on your melee. And these mods all just improve those stats, those percentages, those numbers that you see on the left of your screen when you're modding. Pay attention to those. You don't often need to worry about the overall final damage number. When I first started, I always tried to get that last big number to be big, instead of looking at all the separate status effects that I was adding on. It's those that are often more important, and obviously adding in status and crit also helps. Now we'll go over that in another video, otherwise we will be here until Christmas. But I just wanted you to know that if you can't remember everything in this video and you want to know in a pinch what kind of damage types to think about where you're going, just hover over the node as seen here on the navigation chart, and it'll give you an idea with these little symbols of what they're weak to and what they're resistant to. And if you start scanning enemies, you can use your codex to tell you more about those enemies. You have to scan them a few times, so taking the Helios with a scanner is very useful into missions, and it'll just scan things for you automatically. And also that brings us on to the Simulacrum, because this is a safe space that has no impact on your progress throughout the game. And if you're not sure about the Simulacrum, I'll link my video below going over on how to get it. The Simulacrum is just a controlled environment where you can literally see the damage that you're doing to the enemies without being damaged yourself if you don't want to. You can, obviously, because you might want to be testing your invulnerability in missions against certain enemies with your Warframe abilities, whatever. But in this environment, we can literally see ourselves stacking up status types, like the little symbols. I'm using the Dark Dagger here, and just whacking them and shooting them with my bolter and just seeing what status stacks up. And then when we start adding Archon shards, you can see if it's stacking up even higher in this environment. There's little symbols with the numbers next to them. That shows you the stacks of viral or impact or puncture or whatever you've got going on. And it just shows you against certain enemies how effective your arsenal is going to be. Do you want to go into a mission and stay there for an hour if your arsenal's not very good? No, you don't. And it might be that you're struggling, and the Simulacrum will help you figure out where you're struggling. All you have to do is go and switch out a mod. Try it again. You know, if you've got a little bit of time, go and do that. I highly recommend it. Now, in the upcoming mod videos, I'm not 100% certain what to focus in on, so I'm hoping in the comments you'll guide me of what you'd like to learn and see. Now, I know people are like, how do I mod this? How do I mod that? You can go to Warframe for ideas for modding. I don't want to give you how to mod something specifically. What I'd love for you to do is start learning what the mods are doing in your own space and time, in your experience in the game, because I am a massive advocate of this is your game to play, not mine, and Warframe can be played so many different ways that I'm not here to say you have to mod it this way. I might be playing a completely different way to the way you play. I might have like a penchant for a certain type of enemy and a certain way of playing, and it might be different to yours. If I give you a mod configuration and it doesn't work, you're going to be like, well, why doesn't it work? You're a pleb. No, we've just got different play styles. But I mean, I also am a pleb sometimes, so I won't deny it. So what I wanted to say to you is, if you have a burning desire to know something, or if you're stuck and you just fancy hanging out with some chilled out gamers, please come and join the Discord. Link is on my channel. But also leave some comments and let us know what you think of modding, whether you're confused, did the quest help you, and what you'd like to see in the next modding video. I already have ideas, so please bear that in mind. And if you're one of those people that's like, you've just told everybody the wrong thing, try not to worry about it. It's a game. It's not the end of the world. Okay, cool. So obviously I will give you some mod configurations. I'm not saying I'm going to gatekeep them. I give you my mod configurations and where I use them. And I will also give you the useful mods like the status mods and crit mods, etc. We can start looking into those in separate videos, but they need to be more bite-sized. I know we don't have great attention spans over here. I was just hoping you liked hanging out with me. And if you are still here, you get a gold star, you get a smooch, you get a coffee Barbarian, bit of lovin's. Come to the Discord to collect it. Be polite, obviously. There's only one of me and there's many of you. There's like over 8,000 of you now, apparently. Are any of you watching my videos? Can I get a hell yeah in the comments? Anyway, loads more to come. If something in here doesn't make sense, again, just ask. I don't know everything and I'm learning as I go as well. I know. I just don't have a mathematical brain, and I kind of don't care what the mods are actually doing. I just want them to work, and if they don't, I shove something else in, and I hope for the best. I haven't memorized all of these status types. I still have to search for it on the internet. So don't feel bad if you don't know it all, okay? YouTubers, we don't know it all. We're just using the tools to hand and trying to put it in a nice video for you to watch and enjoy. Okay, again, not here to tell you what to do, just merely to point you in some direction. And also, there's a gaming community that you can just chill out with, hang out with, come and join the Discord. And I want to thank you for watching. Thank my Discordians that are already in there. There's almost 500 people in there now. Nice little community. Thank you to my YouTube members. They're awesome. Thanks for all the support. I can't tell you how much it means to me, and I will just keep plodding on. And some people really don't like me, I've noticed. Don't worry, I'll delete their comments. Anyway, in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I really do hope to see you in the next one, no matter what it may be. But in the meantime, you take care now, and goodbye.